Winning your regional league is impressive, but it doesn't guarantee you'll dominate on the international stage. Every year we've seen champions arrive at MSC, only to discover that regional success doesn't automatically translate against the world's best. The real question isn't who looks strongest during their domestic season, it's which team has evolved the most since lifting that trophy. Which roster has sharpened its drafting, refined its macro, adapted to the latest official patches, and now looks like a completely different beast heading into MSC 2026. That's the team we need to watch. Welcome back to Mobile Legends News. The journey between winning a regional league and stepping into the MSC stage is often where the biggest improvements happen. Once qualification is secured, teams shift their entire focus towards international preparation. According to the official MLBB esports coverage, qualified teams often spend this period studying global opponents, participating in high-level scrims, refining hero priorities around the latest official patch, and building strategies designed for a far wider range of playstyles than they face at home. In this video, we'll examine which MSC 2026 contender appears to have made the biggest leap since their regional championship, and why that growth could matter more than their original title run. When people talk about the favorites for MSC 2026, the conversation usually starts with who won their regional league, but that only tells half the story. The more interesting question is what happened after those trophies were lifted. Thanks to MLBB Esports' expanded 5-region ecosystem, the gap between regional competition and MSC has become even more demanding. Teams now have to prepare for opponents with completely different drafting priorities, laning philosophies, and macro styles. Moonton itself has emphasized that the new structure is designed to raise the level of global competition, making adaptation more important than ever. Some teams have clearly embraced that challenge better than others. Let's start with Team Liquid PH, because they're probably the clearest example of continuous improvement rather than simply maintaining championship form. During MPL Philippines, Team Liquid PH were already one of the most disciplined teams in the league. Their objective control, map rotations, and late-game decision-making separated them from almost everyone else. But even they weren't perfect. Earlier in the season, there were games where their drafting leaned towards comfort picks, occasionally allowing opponents to dictate the tempo during the early game. But by the end of playoffs, however, that weakness had largely disappeared. Their drafts became noticeably more flexible, allowing them to pivot between heavy teamfight compositions, split push pressure, and aggressive snowball lineups depending on the matchup. Instead of forcing one identity every series, they showed they could comfortably adjust to whatever the draft demanded. And that's exactly the kind of evolution you want before an international event. More importantly, Team Liquid PH's execution has become cleaner. Teamfights now feel less dependent on individual heroics and more like 5 players reading the same playbook simultaneously. Every objective trade appears planned several steps ahead, which is exactly the kind of macro that tends to succeed internationally. But they're far from the only team that's grown. Take Team Falcon's PH. During the regional season, Falcons were already one of the most explosive teams mechanically. Their confidence in skirmishes often overwhelmed domestic opponents. But there were moments where that aggression bordered on reckless. Against stronger teams, overcommitting to fights occasionally cost them the map control. Since qualifying for MSC though, Falcons appear far more selective. Their aggression is still there, as it remains part of their identity, but it now comes with much better discipline. Instead of chasing every possible fight, they seem far more capable and willing to trade objectives, reset vision, and wait for better engaged timings. That's a massive improvement, because international tournaments punish impatience. Teams that understand when not to fight usually outperform equally talented rosters that constantly force action. Another fascinating case is Indonesia. Historically, Indonesian teams have never lacked mechanical skill. Their players consistently rank among the world's best in execution. But international criticism has often centered on macro consistency. This year's representatives appear determined to change that narrative. Throughout their regional playoffs, several Indonesian contenders look increasingly comfortable slowing games down when necessary, instead of relying exclusively on non-stop skirmishing. Rotations became cleaner, objective setups looked more coordinated, and their drafting showed greater respect for scaling win conditions rather than simply prioritizing lane dominance. That's a significant evolution because MSC rarely rewards one-dimensional teams. International opponents eventually solve predictable aggression. Balanced decision-making is much harder to counter. East Asia also deserves attention. The inaugural MCT East Asia brought together top teams from China, Japan, Mongolia, and South Korea under one competitive environment before MSC qualification. That format alone forced teams to adapt much faster than many expected, exposing them to regional styles that they normally wouldn't encounter until an international tournament. The result? Several East Asian representatives arrive at MSC qualification looking noticeably sharper than they did only weeks earlier. Draft flexibility improved dramatically as coaches prepared for multiple regional metas rather than a single domestic opponent pool. Communication during these objective fights appeared cleaner, while macro decisions became more consistent across longer series. That kind of accelerated learning curve is exactly what the new championship tour was designed to create. Then there's Team Spirit from EECA. Team Spirit has built its reputation around disciplined macro rather than flashy highlight plays. Official MLBB esports coverage has repeatedly highlighted the organization's sustained domestic dominance, including multiple consecutive regional championships. What's impressive heading into MSC isn't necessarily that they're playing dramatically different. It's that they're becoming more refined. Their vision control, lane assignments, objective timing, and map discipline continue to look polished while other teams rely heavily on mechanical outplays. Team Spirit often wins by simply making fewer mistakes. That's a different kind of improvement, but an equally valuable one. Instead of reinventing themselves, they're sharpening an identity they've already proven successful. And finally, don't overlook teams from emerging regions. One of the biggest changes introduced by the 2026 ecosystem is the expansion of qualification pathways, bringing more regions and more competitive diversity into MSC than ever before. Moonson expanded both the wildcard and regional representation, specifically to increase international competitiveness, meaning many teams are entering the tournament with far more meaningful high-level experience than previous years. For these organizations, improvement isn't measured only by cleaner gameplay. It's measured by experience. Every cross-regional scrim, every international review session, and every adaptation to the latest official patch helps close the historical gap between established powerhouse regions and rising contenders. So, which team has improved the most? Well, there isn't a single obvious answer. Team Liquid PH may have become even more complete than they were during MPL. Team Falcon's PH appears significantly more disciplined while preserving their explosive playstyle. Indonesia's representatives look increasingly balanced between mechanics and macro. East Asia's championship tour accelerated growth across an entire region. And Team Spirit continues proving that refinement can be just as dangerous as reinvention. That may ultimately become the defining story of MSC 2026. The strongest team isn't necessarily the one that dominated its regional league. It may be the team that used every single week after qualifying to become something even better. Regional championships may earn a ticket to MSC 2026, but they don't define how a team will perform once the tournament begins. Several contenders have clearly leveled up through stronger drafting, cleaner macro, better communication, and improved adaptation to the latest official meta. The teams making the biggest leap aren't necessarily the ones that look flawless during their regional leagues. They're the ones that recognize their weaknesses, embrace change, and use every week before MSC to reinvent key parts of their game. At the international level, consistent growth is just as valuable as raw mechanical talent. Now I want to hear from you. Which MSC 2026 team do you think has improved the most since winning or qualifying through its regional league? Is it Team Liquid PH, Team Falcons PH, Team Spirit, Onic, or another dark horse? Let us know your pick in the comments. And tell us this, is recent momentum a better predictor of international success than domestic dominance? And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest MSC 2026 coverage. Till next time!